after Michael Brown's murder, and it shook me to my core. So it was at that point I was like, I want to make the world a better place. If y'all are Marvel fans, like, I am not an Avenger. I am Samuel L. Jackson's character. Like, I see my job. Like, I am
love
Nick.
that.
This is Common Courtesy, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. A talk show for working LGBTQ plus individuals and allies who are active in their own communities and who also wish to stay woke about what's happening in today's world. With your host, Sean Nicholas.
If he's creating like a separate night for, trans performers, is that not inclusive? Or
Nikki Prue.
The positive, good vibes coming off of you in this whole topic is just, it makes me very happy.
Angelique Young.
That everybody was kind of in a good spirit, and then they heard that the owner was coming and the alignment went differently.
I had a crush on my best friend in school. I flirted with him.
Allegedly. From the stories that I heard.
The weak ass joke. And I don't know how anybody hold on.
So, let's start the conversation.
this is an opinion-based show, not a news outlet. The views and opinions of the guests on Common Courtesy TV solely reflect their opinion and or experience, and not of Common Courtesy TV or any of its affiliates or hosts. Welcoming for the first time to our panel as our special guest co-host, we have the Vice President of St. Pete Pride. We have Dr. Byron Green. College, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here as well. And I cannot wait to get into our hot topic. Today, this week, our hot topic, before we talk to Byron about who he is and what St. Pete Pride has been doing for our community and how it's changed over the years, we're going to be talking about a topic that's kind of a controversial issue in our society as to when should we be talking about romantic same-sex relationships in public schools and gender identity as well. So I found a survey done by the Public Religion Research Institute that said that about 65% of Americans agree that same-sex romantic relationships and gender identity could be discussed in schools, just depending on what grade you would talk about them, whether it's elementary, middle school, and high school. And about 34% disagree, that saying it was never appropriate to talk about sexuality and gender identity. So I kind of want to ask you guys, I want to ask the panel, what do you think about what grade, if we should be talking about this, and if so, what grade should we, and why? The first person I'm going to throw under the bus, I'm going to ask Angelique. Angelique, what do you think?
Shut. I think that we live in a society that we've always had these conversations. I feel like the conversation has always been brought to the table. I think for myself personally, as somebody who grew up in the 90s, we had these conversations in school and we were able to talk to our teachers about anything that wasn't in the curriculum. So for me personally, I was able to talk about the LGBTQ plus community with my health teacher. I was able to talk to them with the gym teacher. I was able to talk to them with biology teachers. We had those conversations because they came up. They were something that, it wasn't like a whole textbook section, but it was something that was available. But sex in general, sex ed was a class that like we actually learned about how babies are made and the process it takes for that. It wasn't like they were up there showing pornography, but it was just like giving us this real information, and it made it more feasible in my mind as to what it really was like, what the real repercussions of having unprotected sex could be, whether it was an STD or a baby, whether it was, something that you wanted to do. That there was even classes and things that were in school for people who chose abstinence, for people who chose to choose that different lifestyle,
right,
celibacy and stuff like that. So that was a real thing. I grew up in the woods of the Poconos, after being in New York City for half my life. So I got to see both sides, people having kids at 13, 14 years old, and then people who were, sexually active, having parties in the woods and stuff. It's different. Like, everybody's experience is going to be different, but having that knowledge base definitely helped me with the decisions that I made about my own body and how I wanted to perceive that. And at that point in time, I wasn't worried about being a trans woman. I was worried about just navigating high school as a horny teenager, somebody who's experiencing all these feelings for the first time, all of those things. So I think, honestly, it is something that's important to be taught in school, if nothing else, at least in high school. Once you're in 9th and 10th grade, this is a conversation that needs to be had, because people are going to make these actions, and it's better to let them have informed decisions than uninformed decisions, because there's nothing worse than having a kid come to you and say, I didn't know. I had no idea this was going to happen. Like, even when they're young, they're like, I don't know. Like, that phrase is something that drives every parent crazy. So I think it's super important to have the conversation. I do agree that later it's better, maybe more focused. But I mean, also, if you're going to throw that in there, let's do balancing checkbooks and rotating tires while we're at it, because there are a lot of things that they don't
Oh my
teach you
God.
that are super
No
freaking
kidding.
important.
Taxes?
The small topic, I think, that needs to be addressed. But I do agree that it should be
100%.
taught to some extent.
And let's go to Nikki. Nikki, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I can't say, I'm trying to think back to when I was in school and when I got when my class got our sex ed talk, and the poor nurse, like, I pity any school nurse or guidance counselor. Ours was our nurse who has to give that talk to a bunch of middle schoolers. Like, it's awkward to say the least. It's always going to be, but you need to have that information out there. And like I said, it was like late middle school, probably like right before junior high. So I can't really speak to like what age it's appropriate to have, a more extended education on that. But I mean, 100% at the very latest, junior high. But I think barring that, like, somebody needs to, I believe that kids, students, they need somebody who they can at least ask questions to, especially in like a situation where they're having questions about what, do I like the same sex as me? Do I really feel like the person that I was born? Like, I feel like maybe I'm something different. I'm something that people are, I'm not the same. I'm not the person that, like, my family and friends and my peers assume me to be. I have questions about that. I'm confused. My parents aren't supportive for A, B, C, whatever. If that's the case, they need somebody in the school system where kids spend the majority of their time, who can at least maybe not answer all their questions, but answer some, be a listening ear, be a sympathetic ear, and at least somebody who can be a liaison between them and parents, or just somebody on their side. You don't want kids that age who have questions about that stuff to ever feel alone, ever. So I can't say, I definitely agree that later is better, to actually have that official, like, all right, so we're going to explain things, but not too late. And just because the school system isn't in the position to give that, information out in like an official classroom setting, there should still be someone there that can answer questions, or just be there for students who might have early questions, because there's so much more technology now than like when I was growing up. We like, there was no internet, there was no easy way to just be like, oh, I'll Google how I'm feeling, even when you're like 10, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Now there is, and sometimes it can be more harmful than, more, hurtful than helpful, when a
Right.
kid feels lost and
So,
isolated. I just
so
feel like
yeah.
there should be something they can go
So I
to.
heard I heard you say at the latest junior high. So Dr. Green, you have a doctorate in education, but it's adult education. So, and I would love to have this conversation with you as well. What do you think, as if there's any grade level that you should be having discussions about same-sex relationships romantically, or people who are transgender, or people who do not see themselves as man or woman? When do you think?
That is a very difficult question. I think I'll say a few things, and I'll start off with some facts. First off, the socialization of children happens almost immediately. So when children are born, they are being socialized and receiving cues about what gender looks like, how gender behaves, what their parents' expectation of them is in the world. So that's happening in the house. It's secondary socialization happens or with their family and friends. So when they're interacting with their brothers, their friends, their cousins, when they go to church, those messages are being reinforced the same that's happening in the house. You also see it in media, so TV. You see it in TikToks. You see it in Instagrams. When children are being able to be exposed to gender roles and ideas about the way family structures look and I say that because that socialization happens very early on, and a conversation about sex and the logistics of sex is very different than a conversation about attraction and gender roles, etc. And how we teach our children about gender and family structures and who people love can happen as early as babies. Like, we're talking toddlers that are watching Disney movies. Like, how many times did y'all watch Snow White and you saw this man kiss her while she was asleep? Like, I thought that was weird. But like, okay, cool, whatever. But that is socialized about relationships, that the boy kisses the girl and then she becomes a princess. I'll also give you some facts and figures. Trevor Project did a research project in 2022 that talked about representation and suicide rates of children that identified as LGBTQI+. Off the top, white children experienced or attempted suicide rates at 12%. So 12% of all white children that identified as LGBTQI+ had attempted suicide. When you look at Native American children, that rate almost doubled to 21%. For Middle Eastern and Northern African children, those were 20%, and 19% for Black children. So looking at children of color that did not see, that were LGBTQI+, attempting suicide, the rates double when you look at race inside that construct. Representation and the ability for these children to see themselves is equally as important as a supportive adult. So looking at adults inside the school, that for those children that may not have that supportive adult at home, is really important, because those suicide rates drop drastically when that child had access to an adult that was affirming to how they felt about themselves. So I say all that to say, I think we should have the conversation very early, but not in the way that we think about it, as in, this is where this goes and this is what you should do.
Yeah. Very good point.
But yes, like, if you started early, this is a continuation of a conversation that's way less awkward than sitting down with a box of condoms and saying, don't have sex.
Which was super awkward, because it doesn't always have to be sexual. Like, it should just be about feelings and emotions. I think that you put that well into perspective.
And then let's go to Madison. Maddie, what do you think?
So yeah, kind of like Angelique said, you're taught about reproduction and how to be safe. You don't want to be 13 and pregnant, going to find a job to support yourself and creating a family. Like, I think kids should be children. And me growing up, I was very active in extracurricular activities where I didn't think about even a boyfriend or kissing or having those moments. Like, I was just having fun. And so, like, I just feel that the sexuality and relationships should be talked about more sophomore year in high school. Like, learn your crowd your freshman year, and question yourself if you are feeling some different type of way. And I feel schools there should just be more community safe places. And I know St. Pete's taken a big step in having those places for them to go. So not everyone is not making it feel uncomfortable, like. it's not a discussion for everybody that doesn't pertain to it. You know, if it doesn't go to their lifestyle, or if they're not questioning it, then, you know, I still to this day at 32, I question things you ask the questions if you really want to know. And that's why I just feel like 15 years old, sophomore year is you're more confident in asking those questions. You know, a child, 10, 11, 12 years old in middle school, like, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be asking. There's just a difference in like relationships, you know, emotional, all the different types of relationships, because it's just two people or even more having, you know, consensual whether it be
the world is changing,
Yeah.
bodies or words, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I do think we should be a little bit older and then still have a private groups or places that children or adults can even go.
Yeah,
to
I
talk
think
about it
Byron
and
hit
ask
the nail
those
on the head with
questions
the
and
idea
feel
that like
safe
you have
and-
to you have that opportunity to have that conversation about like Billy has two dads and that's okay. Like
Right.
that's a great thing to say, and that's a situation you leave it at. You don't have to you don't have to explain anything outside of that. And I mean, kids are naturally going to want to know when they see Billy get picked up by his two dads, how does that work? You know, how do they, you know, how does that happen? And so parents who don't want to have that conversation should have the opportunity to have those instructors and those people, you know, that's something, it doesn't matter, you know, they love each other, that's them, you know, that's whatever, you know, or, you know, you have to have that conversation. So you can't ask people outside of their life, you know, outside of the school to hide their life from these kids. It's not going to happen. And I remember growing up, and it's not like it was back in the 80s where you had to go get a magazine off the shelf and kind of read about it. Now, kids have access to the internet. And if a kid can go online and say how to cheat codes for Fortnite, they can say where do babies come from? They can say how does you know a gay couple have, you know, kids? They can research that. They can ask those questions and get those answers. So I don't really see the point anymore in trying to deny them that. And I would rather have them have a conversation with a professional, with somebody who's educated and can actually give them the proper tools to understand and comprehend, than them go and find it on YouTube. Lord knows I don't want that, because right now that's a terrifying thing for me. My nephew could see like Elsa and Spider-Man, you know, humping on a children's YouTube channel, but you can't stop them from. But you're going to tell them not to go to school, like. They can literally see things that are not good for them to see at their fingertips. And that's within the range of like a parental advisory control system. So, you know, there's different things that are happening that are visibly pushing them to, or challenging them to see things as normal. And people want to erase that. And that's not fair. You know, another comment that you made, you know, seeing Cinderella be kissed, or all the stories we were told, or the fairy tales that we watch and read, they have an inspiration on us. They put a stamp on us on the things that we like and don't like. They make us feel like that's what we should be striving for as adults. And it's not until later in life do we realize that that's not necessarily how it works. That's not necessarily how it goes. So I like the idea of introducing them to a world that's like, this is acceptable, this is okay. You'll learn about that your sophomore year. You know, and so that you'll get more information when you're in high school. We'll dive deeper into that, because that's what they do to us with math, right? They introduce addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then later you learn about algebra, you learn about calculus, you learn about all these deeper, more developed moments. So I do feel like to some extent they don't have to make it a whole course, but it should just be integrated naturally, because that is the way of the world now. Just like you just said something that
kind of like
Madison, I never thought about the fact that like we have to understand that people have polyamorous relationships. People are in, you know, multiple relationships with multiple people and do things. And that's the way the world is now. That's no longer a taboo thing. That's no longer a thing that's put to the side. So I feel like now I realize, I'm like, damn, that shit really blew my mind, because I'm like, that is a conversation that needs to be had. It really is.
Right.
It truly is something.
Safe in those relationships,
so just
and respectful of those in those relationships, to have those, making sure you and that person are on the same page, you know, because it's just, we need to communicate better worldwide.
Absolutely. And just to put a button on this conversation so we can go to commercial break, I just want to say, like, yeah, I agree with everyone. Like, there has to be in some type of form of education, whether it's, most people said it was older, later the better. I do kind of agree with what Dr. Green said, because Byron said we're introduced to these topics very early on when we watch, Disney movies and things like that. And whether you should feel good or bad about these things, what you see. I think, but I think that like at least around like middle school that you do have important conversations about society, whether it's in social studies, because it is a societal thing. You don't sleep with everybody that you know or every culture you see out there, but it's good to have some type of education about where they come from. And when you talk about gender identity and sexuality, it doesn't necessarily go into actual like what what Byron said, where do you put things here? You don't need to talk about that, but saying and validating that yes, man and man will get together, or woman and woman get together, or there's thruples out there. They actually exist because then it prepares you for actual reality. And I think that with school, just along with what Angelique said, how to balance a checkbook and economics and things like that, teaching how society actually really works is important, and to vote as well. So we'll see everyone right back after we come from a little commercial break from Tampa Bay Gay to see what's going on this week in our Bay Area. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's Dave with Tampa Bay Gay. We're out here at the Sawmill Campgrounds in Dade City. We're gonna go check in while you check out this week's LGBTQ+ events. On Thursday the 15th, Found Family Collective presents Protect the Community, a benefit show. There are 4 local performers hitting the stage at the Crowbar in Ybor starting at 7 p.m. You can get your advance tickets online now or buy them at the door. Let's raise funds for Found Family Collective. This Saturday, June 17th, is the St. Pete Pride Shades of Pride Festival, an LGBTQ Juneteenth celebration at the factory. There are multiple events scheduled throughout the day and night, and they welcome back special guest T.S. Madison. This is a free event for those 18+. And don't forget, we are giving away 2 pairs of tickets to 2 winners for the Friday night concert featuring Adina Menzel at Janice Live. To enter, visit the link in the description below. For Pride Month, a group of local queer yoga instructors put together a charity event benefiting queer expression. It happens Saturday at 10 a.m. The theme is Strength and Solidarity, inspired by New York City Pride. Reserve your spot now and come move your body for a good cause. This is the last week to get your advance tickets for Uncorking Diversity, a wine tasting celebration presented by Rainbow Recreation on Monday, June 19th. Come celebrate the diversity of our community, focusing on minority-owned winemakers, benefiting the Fitz Lane Project. Thanks for watching, everyone. Check out our Instagram for our Pride Month coverage and visit tampabaygay.com for the latest local events, digital content, and more. Also, please like, share, and subscribe.
Let's get into meeting our very special guest, Dr. Byron Green, who is the co-vice president of St. Pete Pride. Let's get to know you a little bit, Byron. So tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, that is like the most awkward, open-ended question ever. Tell me about okay. I'm a Cancer. I'm a triple water sign. So I'm from North Carolina. I moved here. I moved to St. Pete in 2018. I was working in higher education. Loved higher education. Absolutely loved it. And during the pandemic, like a lot of other people, I took that time to shift out of the thing that I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life and jump into equity work full time. I really thought that I could do the most good out in the world and not in the ivory tower. Yeah, I absolutely loved higher education, but I really felt like I could do the most good out in the world. So I started my own consultancy. I had a really great time with that, doing executive coaching for executives and C-suites, and then hopping on board with a podcasting company called PRX, which is a nonprofit public media company in the podcasting space, and having a ball doing it. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I got married in November. So newly married, it's still like in the honeymoon phase. I guess that's what we'll call it that. I have 2. I also married my best friend, so it's kind of weird. It's like, what's the honeymoon like? We still talk trash like we did before we got married. So we have a piece of paper now that says that like we're official. Right. We have 2 puppies. We have 2 puppies named Benjamin and Bogey. We adopted a greyhound during the pandemic, so when they closed the race tracks down, we adopted one of those, and a miniature schnauzer.
Oh, that's so cute. He says, so like, can you just tell me what led you to become involved with St. Pete Pride?
Why did I get involved with St. Pete Pride? That's like
Oh
That's
no,
like
how or
how did I? Well, I'll tell you why I wanted to from the beginning. That was my Sheree Whitfield, Real Housewives of Atlanta. Like, ooh, he's getting spicy. I'll be incredibly honest with you. When I came to St. Pete in 2018, it was one of my first prides, and I thought it was very white. And I was like, this is a bunch of white men with their shirt off. And I was like, is this all that y'all got? This it? I did not see myself in the space at all. And that was literally my very first weekend here in St. Pete was Pride 2018.
oh wow.
And I said, oh, I've never been the person to like see something off and not want to help to fix it. So at the time I was writing my dissertation. So I was like, let me finish writing this dissertation and then I'm going to come back around and I'm going to try and help y'all because y'all don't know that y'all need some help. But you do. So I finished writing my dissertation and reached out to the the president of the board, and I was like, "Hey, sis, like, what's up? This has been my experience. This is not it." And during that time, between 2018 and 2020, I had a lot of opportunities to engage with people in the community and really get like a sense of like, is what my first one? Is this what y'all been doing this whole time? So I joined the board, and she welcomed my ideas with open arms and was like, hey, we really want to make a change for St. Pete Pride so that it is genuinely reflective of everybody in the community. So that's why I wanted to get involved. And yeah, it's been a great ride since.
Only other Pride boards took that hint.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
A little shade here.
Honestly, I'm kind of curious. It just seems like from everything I've read on you and just, meeting you for this short time and hearing just a little bit of your background, it just seems like you are someone who is like born to help and guide and fix things. Like, I mean, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, you just it seems like a very natural role for you. And I mean, I know, you kind of like started this road, like your adult professional road, kind of like more in education. But like, at what point, like, was there a point in your life where you were just like, I know, when you're a kid, like before dreams really like come to fruition or you really start down like a professional path, was there a time where you were just like, I know I want to help people. I want to like make the world a better place and I want to fix things and I want to I feel like someday I'm going to have a lot to offer as far as guidance. Like, was there something or just, was it something you always knew or was it something that you came to realize as you grew up?
That's a really good question. I think I have always been the paternal figure of my friend group. I'm like insanely protective of my people. So I was the person that was like cooking Sunday dinners in college and like making sure that like after graduation, like we always like were able to get back together or at least keep the conversation going. I definitely got into teaching because I wanted to stand up for the students that didn't have a great experience. We joked about guidance counselors earlier. My guidance counselor in high school told me I'd never be a doctor, and I always went like, "Hey, girl, hey,
Hey, just stopping in to say hi."
Hi, sis. No, but I think it was one of those things that was like, I really want to make sure that people have a great experience. And what does that look like? I'm not sure. Because I was like, I don't know where this is going to lead me. And to be very honest and frank with you, my growing up, I lived and existed in white spaces almost continuously. So my dad was a captain in the sheriff's department. My mom worked in public health. So I existed in white spaces, and that was kind of what I knew. But the death and killing of Mike Brown really shook me to my core, because I was working with students and I did not know how to help them through a situation that I was struggling with at the same time. Like, it was always like, let me help you get to where I am as I am going somewhere else. But now we're both struggling with this same thing together, and I don't know what to tell you to help you get, excuse me, to where either of us wants to go. And that was really the beginning of my research. I changed my research topic completely after Michael Brown's murder. And it shook me to my core. So it was at that point, I was like, I want to make the world a better place. If y'all are Marvel fans, like, I am not an Avenger. I am Samuel L. Jackson's character. Like, my job. Like, I am Nick Fury, because I really do see myself as empowering the people that are around me to go back to the places that they are going to be excellent. Give them the tools that they need to go and fight the battles that they are going to fight. And in doing so, I'm able to impact exponentially more lives around me than I could do just by myself. So that's really how I approach the work that I do. And with St. Pete Pride, like, St. Pete Pride is, we have two people that we pay, as our executive director, Nicole Berman, and our office assistant, Kara Wright. Everything else is really board led. So we have a board of 13 people. We are the solid group of people that are putting things together, coming up with ideas, looking for input from community members, going out into our individual communities and coming back with feedback about what St. Pete Pride is going to look like moving forward.
Right. So let me go to Angela. Sorry to cut you off. No. You answered her question. Let me go to Angelique. Angelique.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
Angelique, let me go to you. Do you have a question for Byron?
Well, honestly, I don't really have a question so much as I have an appraisal to what you've already said. You are definitely somebody that I've noted as a complete and total warrior for St. Pete Pride. And I think a part of my gravitation towards that organization has really been mostly in part to you. You've always kind of been in my ear about it. You've always kind of buzzed about it. And then working on Red Green last year with you and everything really kind of helped put into perspective, because honestly, when I first came to St. Pete Pride 10 years ago, I was like, oh, I don't think this pride is for me, y'all. I was like, I don't think this is, I really, like, much to like you, I didn't see the representation I needed. I seen one drag queen. I seen, it was a little bit, but it wasn't enough. And I had come from Pittsburgh where I didn't have it at all. So I was like, just kind of looking at this, I was like, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's easier to stay where you live than to travel outside. And honestly, I had never had that idea to be a part of the change. It was never a thing until people started looking at me and the work that I was doing and being like, oh, can you come in? Or can you help? Or just come see it. Come give us a try. It's almost like test driving a car. It was very slick how y'all got me, because it was like, oh, come be a guest. And then it was like, oh, the next year, come perform. And then it was like, oh, you do really well. You should really consider. People were sliding into my DMs and sending me like applications for things. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't even know what that entails. I don't even know how to take that jump. But honestly, this year, like, after everything I've done with Tallahassee and the work that I've been doing, and you reaching out to me, and specifically, thank you so much for looking out for the trans community. You truly are a martyr and a visionary for being able to see a smaller community and wanting to uplift and wanting to, like, expand and even educate. That was such a huge thing for me to have those conversations with you. I think it's so important. So I think people should really understand, if nothing else is gained from this wonderful podcast conversation, take, your story and really amplify that for themselves and choose to be the change they want to see, choose to step up. And you never know what you can do. You never know what's going to happen. But like I tell a lot of people, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So thank you for the work you do in the community. Thank you for everything you're doing for my community specifically, and for women like me in the world, and giving us not only a platform, but a space to feel safe. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is, A, it's easy, and B, I never want to take credit in spaces that I want to give and share the platform with, but my advocacy for trans rights, deep. I love you down deep, and I think one of the things I always advocate for is using your privilege to help people that don't have it. So for me, as a cisgender male, being able to stand 10 toes down, and I tell people all the time, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. So being able to move and create space for you and to lift you up and to make sure that we get you the things that you need, 10 toes down, every chance I get. I just told somebody else, someone was like, I need to speak to, somebody wants to do a media interview. I was like, you need to call Angelique Young. They was like, anybody else? I said, Angelique Young is who you need to go talk to. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So let's go to Madison. Yeah. Madison, do you have a question for Byron?
Yeah, what implements of change have you done? Because I moved out of St. Pete in 2017 and seen my first one in 2015. So yeah, it was pretty much just, it was almost like a Halloween, but for Pride, just getting dressed up and acting wild. Like there wasn't really like, like coming together. Like it was just like a free for all. So what changes have you made to bring it more, community?
Sure. And I think this is, anything that we have done has been a collective board movement.
Right.
One of the things that we have done has been to really push an event that's coming up this Saturday called Shades of Pride. Shades of Pride is the intersection and celebration of queer Black people, recognizing that Juneteenth is the day that the last slaves were freed in Galveston, Texas. That all of us, no one is free until all of us are free, is the central tenet of Juneteenth. So we don't celebrate freedom until Juneteenth. So we said, hey, queer Black people as a small intersection are not always celebrated in Black spaces. So how do we, a Pride organization, give them, Black people that are queer, a space that they feel safe and comfortable to celebrate both their Blackness and their queerness, that they cannot separate at any point in time. So our Shades of Pride event with our community partners, shout out to Tam, shout out to Rocky Butler, a few other friends that we have had, Caden and the Blunt Space. We've really tag teamed with a lot of community partners to pull them in to help us put on this really amazing event. Evolve Tampa Bay as well, Yummy in the ballroom scene. I hate doing this because I'll always forget somebody, but Shades of Pride this weekend, 6 o'clock at the Factory. We have T.S. Madison that will be a host. We have Milan Christopher, who is a socialite, VH1, Zeus, celebrity. He will be there as well, looking all fine and sexy. So that's one thing. We also have really leaned into accessibility. One of the things that you will see this year's Pride are not only handicapable or people that use wheelchair access to the stage and to witness the parade itself. I thought that was really important, that we cannot celebrate everybody if everybody does not have access to the space. So we'll have the stage itself. You'll have access to the parade itself. We'll have interpreters at the event as well to really make sure that everybody feels like they are there. Other piece is lesbian representation. Like, I thought it was so weird.
Hello.
Like, have a Pride and like we don't talk about lesbians. It was like, okay, well, that's weird. So we'll have a lesbian party, a ladies' party after the parade. We're talking burlesque dancers or the whole 9 yards. That party is only for the ladies. So that is one of the things that we are really proud as a board to really bring into the space and creating things for everybody. So family
for
day,
inclusion.
Inclusion. Like, we can't say LGBTQIA plus and not have things for everybody. Yeah. So family day, like, we celebrate families because everybody doesn't like to like come out to the party or the big things. Like, I got kids. What do I do with my kids? Okay, well,
just doing smaller, more inclusive, where you're with more like-minded people. Yes. That's great.
Absolutely. And you know what? Since you're on a roll on telling us what was going on for St. Pete Pride this month, what specifically at the end of the month that you have going on? I know there's a Friday night concert. I know there is a parade and there is a festival as well. That the Friday night concert Angelique is hosting with Idina Menzel. So, like, tell us a little bit about those things before we.
Just can't.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Amazing.
Tell us a little bit about that before we go. We're running out of time.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll have the Friday night concert. You mentioned Angelique is going to be our gracious host. We have Idina Menzel that is going to be rocking the house down. That'll be over at Janice Live. So come on out. It's going to be a great time. We will be picking up the next morning, Saturday morning. We'll be kicking things off. So I will be down there. 2:00, things will get started. The festival, we will get things going. The parade itself will start with the Trans March. So the Trans March will start
on Saturday, June 24th.
Saturday, June 24th is the parade day. The Trans March will start in reverse of the parade. So the Trans March will start at Vanoy Park. It will march towards the beginning of the parade itself. And then the parade will go back down from the airfield back to the Vanoy. We have 2 different event spaces in North Straw Park and in Vanoy Park. So multiple activations for people to come do the things. We have Meet Me at the Altar and Malaysia Baby Doll Fox from Miami. Your Girl is Coming Back, RuPaul's Drag Race, to do the things. Sunday, we will have our street festival. We will go back to where Pride started here in St. Pete, and that is Grand Central District. So this year we were really excited to start the month off with our kickoff party in Grand Central District and finish the weekend off strong in Grand Central District as well. After Sunday, we'll come back for Queerioke, so a singing extravaganza with Carson Kressley. So Carson will come back and host that event for us. And our last, then after that, we'll have Transtastic. So Transtastic is our event that celebrates the trans community and the beauty and joy that that community has. So that will be hosted at the Museum of Fine Arts. We have details about that are on our website. That will be on Wednesday, I do believe. After that, we will come back with our the last event of the month, which will be our volunteer thank you and wrap up party. So that date is TBD. So hold on tight because we've got to finish that off. And likely, I heard a little bird say that it might be on my birthday, which is July 3rd. So if y'all are around, come celebrate with me and the volunteers. And as we close out Pride Month.
Amazing. And for more information about those events, please go to stpride.org. You'll find out where all those events are taking place. And if you have the day off to go. All right, guys, I wanted to thank Byron for being here. Thank you so much for your time and telling us a little bit about yourself, St. Pete Pride, and jumping in on hot topics. I wanted to thank my amazing co-host, Angelique, Nikki, and our newcomer, Madison, for being here and joining us in the conversation. I want to thank our audience for listening to us, and we will see you. Oh, also, I want to thank Tampa Bay Gay for our commercial, and we will see you guys next week. And as I always like to say, always have a little bit more common courtesy because courtesy isn't so common. We'll see you next week.